this particular exercise, we want to be able to knock the background out from our bodybuilder, and we could probably easily do that with a layer mask. We could paint around the edges and knock the background out with black and leave the shape of the bodybuilder in white. But sometimes what happens when we paint and it's kind of crooked, and it's going to put little dents in some of these areas that should be nice and smooth. So that's when we use the pen tool. So here's the pen tool right here. We have a lot of different kind of attributes that the pen tool can have. We can add anchor points, delete anchor points, change corner. We're not going to worry about this right now. I'm going to learn some of the keyboard commands to access these. But the main tool really is going to be the pen tool. And I'm going to zoom first kind of at his neck. So I'm using my command spacebar to zoom into the neck area. And I'm going to just start here, the corner where his jaw and his neck meets. And I'm going to describe the kinds of click and drags I create here. Okay. So first of all, this is the background layer. I can't mask anything on the background layer, so I'm going to change the name and just call this body. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and start clicking and dragging. I'm going to click on the jaw, this little corner here, click. That's pretty much a straight line. If I click on the corner where his shoulder starts and his neck intersects, click, that's a straight line. If I, still holding the mouse down, drag one direction or the other direction, that line will bend. Okay? And notice that from this anchor point where I clicked, these handles pop out too that I can later on grab and adjust. So there's going to be a little tiny bend there, so I don't have to pull too hard. And I'm going to stop there. That's a pretty sharp corner. To create a sharp corner and make sure that it doesn't create a weird bend there, we can hold down the Option key, or on a PC, the Alt key, and click on that anchor point. Let me zoom in closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Oh, my pixel grid is showing. It actually shows the pixels. Let me turn that pixel grid off. Under View, Show, let me turn off that pixel grid. So we just see pure image. And it's okay to zoom in this close so that if you want to control your clicks and drags, you can do that. And I'm going to Option click on this center anchor point to make that into a sharp point. Option or Alt click. There we go. It takes away one of the handles, and I can move. How am I moving around my canvas now? I'm holding the space bar down. I can try to make this big long arc here. Click. Okay, do I want a straight line? Okay, I want that kind of bent, right? Click and drag. And I can bend that a little bit. I'll stop here. Just to let you know also, if you feel like, you know what, it kind of sort of dips here and it goes up there, I probably shouldn't have gone all the way there, it's a little too far, don't worry about it. You can hover above the path. This is the path, kind of hard to see, but there's a line there. Hover above that and you'll see the pen puts a plus sign. That lets you add another anchor point. And I added one there. Now to move that, hold down the Command key to adjust the anchor points, to adjust the handles that you've created. Okay. Am I at a corner now? If I click here, watch what happens. You see how it kind of dips? Because look at that handle, it's so long, there's like gravity that's pulling that handle. Okay, so how do I make this into a corner? Option or Alt click. So now I can start a brand new arc, and I may have to zoom out a little bit because the point of using the pen tool is to try to create nice, smooth arcs. If you're a beginner or you're a little scared of making anchor points, you would like click, 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 kind of like dot to dot, right? But the idea really is to have as few clicks or as few anchors as possible. What happens if you created a path that has too many anchor points? You want to get rid of them. Well, without pressing anything on the keyboard, just hover above it, and there's going to be a minus sign that appears next to the pen tool, and click on it. It subtracts the anchor points. So what I can do now, let me zoom out, I'm going to move this anchor point. What keyboard do I press to change temporarily to the move anchor tool, or it's actually this tool right here. It's your selection tool, your path selection tool. What do I press? I press the command key. On a PC, that would be the control key. From here, this corner to this corner, I want to do that. Sure. How do I add an anchor point? Just hover and click, right? Okay, so I'm going to be kind of redundant in talking about the same tools over and over. Okay, I need to pull on this side a little bit. Command pull a little bit there. Maybe a little bit of a pull here too. I want to try to get that as smooth as possible. Okay, let's go here. I can move this a little lower. Click. And these shapes are a little bit, they change kind of quickly. So I'm going to, let's zoom here so you can see. I clicked and dragged here. And I'm going to make this, the gravity is pulling this path towards this handle, so I'm going to move that handle a little closer in. Okay. I'm going to adjust this so it's there. Okay. Go here. I'll call that a corner and smooth it a little bit further. Okay. And now I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag. I'm kind of looking where the curve begins and then ends and then begins again to create a different curve. So from here, I'm going to click and drag here. It's starting to curve here, so I'm going to click and drag there. I'm going to zoom in because I'm not sure what's happening here. So, you know what? I'll go all the way up to here. And then just add a few more anchor points to help describe that bend. Okay, click. I need to make that into a corner. What do I press? Option, right? Convert that to a corner so it doesn't swoop up. And I'm just going to go ahead, and the pixels that you see here, some of the pixels here are part of the hand, some are part of the background. You kind of want to just intersect it where both kind of meet. And you can see those pixels really clearly because we're zoomed in so close. And I'm just going to trace around here. So yeah, essentially we are tracing. Now, one of the other tools that we have to learn how to work with is Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is using exactly this tool. It's all about the pen tool. So we're kind of getting a little bit of a introduction to the tools in Illustrator here, and hopefully you'll kind of get a hang of it. Notice here it kind of got weird, right? It kind of went and then went back in. We can adjust this by shortening this handle. So my one of my fingers, in this case it's my thumb. My thumb is kind of hovering above the command key as I am building. And also the space bar, so I can move around. Space bar, click and drag. I'm going to make this arm, this path. I can zoom out also so that it's a little, I can do a bigger path from end to end. I think I want to bend here a little bit. I'm going to add an anchor point and move it down. Now you want to be careful when you add an anchor point. Don't click away from the path. Like I'm going to click away from the path. Okay, you're just going to connect to that last anchor point. Okay, you want to click on the path to add an anchor point. So it's going to be kind of a strange experience for if you've never used this tool before, and you really kind of have to know the keyboard commands to be able to work fairly speedily on here in terms of how to move the canvas around, zoom because you're zoomed in so far, how to use the command key to change into the we have two kinds of tools here, the path selection and the direct selection. The path selection will select the entire path, which is not what we want. We want the direction, so we can move either an anchor or a handle, one or the other. Now, if we get tired and we stopped, I moved to a different tool, and I want to continue drawing my path, go back to the pen tool and take a look at where you left off and click on it. Don't click next to it. You want to click on that last anchor point. So Photoshop knows you want to continue building. Otherwise, you might end up with a second path. In the shadow areas here, sometimes you have to kind of figure out, is that going to be a corner there? Or is that going to be a nice curve? I'm going to make that into a corner, or it's a corner right now. And then, is it possible to change a corner like this, if I command click on it, a corner into a curve? Yes, indeed we can. We can hold the Option key down, click on that anchor, that's the corner, click on it and drag and round it off. Does that make sense? Okay. So we can create curves out of corners, and if there's a curve here and we say no, that needs to be a solid corner. Okay. Option, click on that anchor point, just one click, boom, it's back to a corner. Okay. So the Option key allows you to kind of modify corners into curves or curves into corners. Alright, I gotta zoom out a little bit here so I can see where I am. And again, hopefully you can see enough where the edge of the body is. And I'm just going here. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster. I'm going to make that into a corner. Option click. I could probably have made this into a very long path segment, but I'm zoomed so tight, so I really should zoom out a little bit and then just continue building. So you're tracing. We are tracing around this body. The different dips and curves. It's very difficult in this area because it's dark against dark, so we just kind of have to guess the best that we can to be as accurate as we can. Okay, I'll just zoom in. Normally I'm a lot further out, but I wanted to zoom in so I can show you kind of the more detailed. I added an anchor point here. I'm going to lift that up and move this a little. Not quite exactly a corner, so I'm just going to make a little short drag there. So again, you're just going to do your best. And don't worry, if it's not accurate, later on you can command and move it to a more accurate position. You can add additional anchor points, you can subtract additional anchor points. I'll move this a little further out. And we're going to spin around here, around the foot, just smooth that a little higher. Just going to go around here. And follow the shape of the leg. Now, what would you use this tool for? Anything that really needs a smooth edge. If you're knocking the background out and compositing and you need a really smooth edge, what would have a really smooth edge? A car, an airplane, things that are usually metallic or plastic. So a lot of products, for example, if they're being professionally photographed against a white background or whatever color background, and then needs to be put on a different background post-production or after it's been photographed, usually those items are knocked out using the pen tool to create the path, and then the path that's been created converted to a vector mask. Once upon a time, the pen tool also only had one edge quality, which was sharp. You could only have sharp edges. Now with newer versions of Photoshop, we're able to actually soften that edge, which is referred to as feathering. You can feather the edge so that it's not super duper sharp, but that's generally the nature of the pen tool. It's a sharp edge. But we have other tools where we can actually soften the edge. Creating paths around objects or tracing you have to have patience to do this, because you want to try to be as accurate as possible, being as true to the edge as possible. And trying to get as few anchors as possible. I'll add an anchor here. It looks like it dips just slightly in here. Whenever you move something, you want to click back on the last anchor point just to tell Photoshop, okay, I'm ready to continue adding to my path. And finishing up. Let's move that in a little bit. So let's just say this is as far as I can go. I need to save my file and open it back again. Okay. So what do? You go home, or you go to another computer, you open up the file, you want to choose the pen tool and look for the path. There's actually a path here, a path panel. Let me introduce that to you. And you can't see the path. Now you can see the path. It's almost like a layer, okay? And if you're ready to work on it some more, then highlight it and then use your pen tool, Command, click on that path and click on the end, the last or the first anchor point, and begin building some more. So you don't have to finish the entire path. Going around here. And there's going to be some areas I'm going to leave out, like you can see a little bit of the black background there, that I want to keep some of that so that we know how to fix it later on. But usually you want to make sure you're as tight as possible. But I'll leave a few dents and errors. So we know how to fix them. Okay, getting close to the end here. I actually probably don't have to be very accurate with the head, because we're going to replace the head or cover the head with another creature's head. Okay, so I'm not even going to worry about the hair. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and give him a slight haircut here. Yeah, being accurate around the hair is completely unnecessary. Now, if you really wanted, you were going to keep the head, then you really would have to be a lot more accurate in masking the hair. And that's, you'll be using more than just the pen tool there. It's more of an advanced scale. All right, so I'm here. The beginning is there. I'm going to get a little closer, and I'm going to finish and end and close my path. Click. So that is one solid path now. Everybody okay with that? All around the entire body, there is a series of dots that are the anchor points. In between the dots are the lines of the path. Usually, you would have less anchor points around areas that are pretty much continuous, but we added extra points, or I added extra points here just to show that you can, if you need to, if you're still not used to it, you can do shorter spurts of anchors, but make sure you try to get the curves around it. What do I do with this anchor? What do I do with these anchor points? Just like when we have a selection, we can go to Layer. Instead of Layer Mask, we're going to go to Vector Mask, okay, and choose the current path. So you need the path to be lit up. Well, remember I showed you the path panel. If you click underneath the work path, or the path that you created, and you try to go to Vector Mask, Current Path, notice it's gray. You need to have a path that's lit up. So click on the path. Now here you don't see the anchors. It's okay, but I can see the lines. It's still selected. Layer, Vector Mask, Current Path. Okay. Here's what happens when I choose Current Path. Boom. The background is knocked out. If you see here, instead of black in the Vector Mask, the knocked out area is going to be represented in gray, and the area that you can see is going to be represented in white. What am I going to do with this now? Well, I need to have two of my pictures visible at the same time. Here's his destination, the cave. I'm going to move that so they're not tabbed, okay? And I'm going to move my body JPEG here, and I need to be able to see both at the same time. So where's my window? Here's my cave. They're kind of next to each other, right? You just want to make sure you can see both pictures, because how we're going to move the layer called body, where's my layer? This whole layer along with this vector mask is we're going to grab the entire layer, click, drag into the destination layer, let go, and there it is. Okay, so let's go here to the K picture. That picture was too big, so we're going to transform, edit, transform. Now, which layer am I going to transform? The body, right? Okay, notice it says here transform path, scale. Let me zoom out here so you can see what happens. And tell me if this is the kind of transform that I want. I want him to be a smaller figure here in the cave. Is that the kind of transform I want? What got transformed? Just the path. Just the vector mask. Let me undo. Okay. Let me press escape. When you want to transform the entire layer, you want to transform the entire layer. Make sure you don't have the path selected. Okay. So you can click underneath, or if you're on the vector mask on your pen tool, command click outside. But it's easier to do it with the path panel because you can see it. It's lit up, no longer lit up. Okay. Now let's go ahead and zoom out. Transform, edit, transform, scale. It should scale the entire picture. How do I scale a picture grabbing a corner in proportion? What key do I press? Shift. Okay. So I'm going to scale this a little bit smaller. And I don't want him to be too big. Why? Because we're going to be putting a pretty big bullhead on him. Okay. And this cave picture isn't really a small picture. It's just the bodybuilder picture was just huge. Much bigger. Okay, I'm good with this. Now you want to be sure, because you don't want to transform a picture and then it's too small and then you transform it and make it bigger and then smaller and then bigger and then smaller. You don't want to you want to try to transform a picture once as much as possible. Okay? You don't want to treat pictures like yo-yos. All right, that's good. How do you accept this? Press the check on the option bar or the enter key on your keyboard, and there we go. This picture actually, the cave picture is actually pretty big. Okay, and here we have a really nice, clean edge on the body. Yes, it's not soft and fuzzy. And sometimes, like I said, if you were to use a layer mask, you're painting and then you're just not really perfect in that curve, and it just kind of dents in and out. The pen tool allows you to just really describe the nice shape and curves. Okay, this pretty much completes the first part of our exercise. Okay, we'll still need to add the head here. We'll still need to put kind of a gladiator kilt on his body and show off some of these muscles and dirty him up and add some bruises, because he's supposed to be a fierce minotaur. Okay. And don't forget to save. Okay, save this document with the file naming convention that we have. Do you need to save the other document? If you want to save it, go ahead and save it, but you don't have to turn it in. Okay, this is just a nice picture to have, just in case the other file gets corrupted. You still have one of your source files that you could pull from. You don't have to create the path all over again. But this is going to be the actual exercise itself.